6.5%, was it? Is that what the current odds are of the Stanley Cup?
Well, and if you look at the round-by-round progression, the Stanley Cup favorite is the Vancouver Canucks.
Like, what a time to be alive!
Talking you through every goalie controversy, scoring slump, and draft lottery bust, this is the C4 Podcast on CanucksHockeyBlog.com. Here they are, the best starting lineup we could afford under the salary cap. Chris, Matt, Anna, and Adam.
Welcome to another episode of the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast, brought to you by the Full Press Coverage Network and CanucksHockeyBlog.com. As always, I'm Chris at Lightforce, joined virtually by Anna Forsyth at aforsyth03, and a special guest. That's right. Known in Squadcast, the platform we use to record, as Discreet Speaker, but far from that, we've got Mike Paris.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. This is a new format for me, so I guess it assigned me a name.
Yeah, it does. It automatically puts something in there unless you change it. So you are now known forever as Discreet Speaker. You'll have to update your Twitter profile.
Deal.
You know, I'm just thinking, like, the last time that you would have recorded, like, Game Time Decision was sometime before everything moved into this virtual world.
Oh,
right?
long before. Yeah, this would have made our lives a lot easier. I'm not going to lie.
Well, we tried going virtual for a spell, and we had nothing but problems, which is one of the reasons why, like, the show moved into what we called the Hot Box. I don't know if you've ever seen the Inspiration Lab at the Vancouver Public Library downtown.
Not recently.
Okay, well,
it's about as glamorous as it sounds.
Yeah, inspirational, I'm sure.
Yeah, you essentially, picture this space that gets carved out in a library where they decide to put in, like, studio spaces, recording spaces. And because it was put in after the fact, there's absolutely no ventilation. And you're essentially contained in boxes that are carpeted and have double glazed or triple glazed windows. So that if it's warm in the summer, you know it. In fact, if it's cold in the winter, it's still warm.
Well, Chris, you sat in my apartment to do Game Time Decision at one point, and that was a hot box in itself at some point. So,
but there was a beverage there. Like, I was able to consume a beverage.
Always.
I can assure you, there were no beverages, not even the non quote unquote beverage kind, allowed in to the hot box at the library.
Well, when I did Game Time Decision, we did it in the rec room, I believe.
Yeah, in the common room in my building.
Yeah. I mean, I had a great time, but I was super jet lagged and overworked at the current time. But it was a great deal of fun. Me and Pagnificent, Stephanie Pagani, Pags.
Oh, was it when Pags was in town?
Yeah, we did a joint how the hell did you two get into hockey episode.
Basically.
Actually, you know what? I actually think I do recall that episode.
Yeah, and on the way back, I fell asleep on the bus and missed my stop.
Anyway, happens to the
how
best
memorable.
Of them.
Yeah, what great adventures when we could go places and visit friends and things of that nature.
Yeah, the old times. But it's cool that you're able to join us, Mike, being one of the Canucks podcasting OGs. Like, I want to say, GTD... Did it start the same year C4 did, or pretty close? Like, it would have been...
It was you guys. When did you start? Like, what time of year?
We were in June. Essentially,
June?
Clay and I decided, let's start a podcast after the season.
Yeah, well, I believe we started in, like, maybe August or September.
Okay.
So I think we were within a couple months of you guys and of Pucks on Net.
Yeah,
it was all kind of in
right.
the same few months when we all decided we were smart enough to do a podcast. And that people would listen and maybe care.
That's why I had Clay with me. I figured that, Clay was at least smart enough. I just happened to be a guy.
Excuse me, Chris. If anyone's a coattail riding podcast host, it's me. So,
what are you trying to say?
It's always good to have someone who knows what they're talking about, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, it's the reason why, Anna obviously joined, is to ensure that the podcast still has some credit out there on the street.
Yeah, something like that. But then Chris is there for the old-timey takes, and remember the 80s?
That's what I'm here for. Speaking of remembering the 80s, won't go that far back, but we are going to talk about the week that was. Obviously, the Vancouver Canucks are doing the unspeakable right now, although there are many out there that might suggest it should be much more spoken about. But before we get into that, we're going to shake our show up a little bit because, the Vancouver Canucks have been going and letting Kyle Dubas build their team for them. We wanted to talk a little bit about the podcasting landscape because when you get OG podcasters together, they like to wax on. And obviously, since when we started into the modern day that we see things in, who better to tell us the way that it once was other than that Mike Paris? Not that one, but that one. So why don't we take ourselves a quick break and dive into a early version of the F word.
He liked to say the F word.
Well, then get the here then. Okay, see ya.
Is going to have the F word on it.
I wish I could give you an explanation about it. I can't.
You, out of it.
You said the F word, Dad.
You called me the F word.
I'm just going to say it. There are currently 367 Canucks podcasts out there. What the actual F? Because, when I think back to the good old days, like we talked about at the top of the show, Game Time Decision, there was us, there was Pucks on Net. We sort of came in at the same time. And then Wyatt and Jordan had, was that Legion of Blog?
Legion of Blog.
At the time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they're now in Trust the Process, but they sort of took a break before they reiterated. I want to say the Real Good Show would have been around then at that time.
Yeah, I think they were a little bit after us, but yeah, probably within the same year.
Yeah. But it's just amazing how when we think back to when we got our start in the podcasting landscape, Blogs was where it's at. Like, really in the grand scheme of things, while there were podcasts, the Canucks podcasts, if it wasn't for the sort of us and Real Good Show and the Legion of Blogcast, it was the essentially recorded versions of the shows straight off of radio.
Yeah. It was good being the only show in town because that means people will actually listen.
Yeah.
Now I'm not sure if Game Time Decision were to start up again tomorrow, especially under the format that we did run when we first started, no one would listen. No one would care.
Yeah.
Well, it depends.
Because we weren't exclusively Canucks when we decided on what we were going to do. It was basically just let me censor myself for the first time, a shoot the stuff kind of two friends talking that had a hockey element to it. Mm-hmm. And then eventually once Ryan started to launch a little bit, it became way more Canucks focused, which was fine with both of us. Yeah. I could make less wrestling references and do less reviews of local theater, but I wasn't complaining too much.
We like both elements to it, I think.
There you go. Thank you.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, if you consider sort of Anna and I and how we approached C4, it's definitely Canucks. But if there's ever an opportunity to go off the rails, we take it. Like, how do you not go off that spur and start talking about, I don't know, TV, movies, other sports, weather?
That's when the magic happens, right? That's when I found out that Ryan didn't know how to pronounce the word meme. That was, what
did he say? Meme?
Mimi, I believe it was.
He said Mimi? Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So that's, and then, legendary GTD episodes such as Getting Drunk in Anaheim with Stephanie.
Okay. I didn't know if I could refer to that episode, but I still can't get over Pagani allowing two guys she's never met to interview her in a hotel room. Like,
she lives on the wild side, that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if I recall that episode, you guys recorded before the game and then there was after the game. Like, it was two
precisely.
Segments. Yeah. And you could tell there was a whole lot of game that had happened.
Exactly. That, like I said, but that's when the magic happens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think what was great about Game Time Decision is that you and Ryan knew each other so well, so there was a lot of trust there. Like, once I met Ryan in person, it was just almost crazy to me that you were able to sort of bring what you did out of him on Game Time Decision, because he's the loveliest person ever, but he's very shy and retiring, but he kind of comes alive on Game Time Decision.
Yeah, do you know, I in hindsight, I don't get a lot of opportunities to talk about Game Time Decision anyway, but in hindsight, it was a good pairing, because I think that my personality and stuff helped bring out Ryan a little bit, and also helped bring out some of his knowledge, and I was there to ask him the right questions that started the right conversations, and I wasn't the knowledge base on the show, and everyone knew that, but I was there to help him shine a little bit.
And to
Definitely.
To those listeners who might not be too clear which Ryan we're talking about Ryan Beach. He seems to be a knowledgeable Canucks fan, although I don't know. Can you still? I'm not trying to gatekeep, but maybe I am. Do you still call yourself a fan when you work for the team?
He's a bigger fan now than he was when he didn't work for the team.
True. Okay, that's actually a good way to look at it.
I've never seen someone, in personal talks with him. He, back in the bubble period of our lives last year, he was cheering for them to win more than anyone else I knew.
Fair enough.
But I think this might have something to do with his paycheck being according to it, but who knows?
Well, I don't know a lot about sort of the business world, but generally speaking, you tend to want to talk well of your employer. Like when whoever's name's on the paycheck, generally you don't go and drive the bus over, or in the context of what we talk about, the bandwagon.
Well, I haven't spoken to Ryan about this specifically, but it's probably been an interesting couple months, not knowing exactly who was going to be signing his paychecks in the next little while here.
Fair enough. I mean, it is strange, like, to go on that journey, starting off as a Canucks fan, and then if you get into sort of the media side, as Ryan was doing, you become less and less of a fan and think more analytically, and then to go from that to work from the team where you have to scrub any evidence of saying anything bad ever.
Yeah.
I've still got some evidence. I've got a little portable hard drive here that I could, I'm sure I could bring some evidence out.
Mike has the receipts. But no, actually, the scrubbing of the Twitter accounts, like I remember when Beach's Twitter account suddenly went blank. It's okay, which team hired him? I mean, the number of people in sort of what we would know as Canucks Twitter or the Canucks social media space that have been hired by teams, I have no comparison as far as markets is concerned. But there are a ton of people out of the Canucks space that are now working for a variety of NHL teams. I mean, whether it be the Toronto Maple Leafs, whether it be the Florida Panthers, the Vancouver Canucks, and I'm just scratching the surface. I know there's others that are out there. So yeah, when Beach's Twitter account suddenly went blank, it's like, oh yeah, he's got a job, but it's good to know you've got the receipts.
Somewhere. I'd have to look for them.
But that, to use as a segue, I mean, when we started our shows, Canucks Twitter was a different place. I mean, Canucks Twitter has been a special entity. I mean, let's be honest. The moment it became a thing, I want to say it's sort of late 2000s into the sort of 2010, 2011 runs, where it started to really amp up, it became sort of a machine on its own. And we started to see it evolve, where instead of it being just a bunch of people who rallied around a hashtag to talk about the game, it suddenly became everyone rallied around a hashtag to tell you how wrong your take is and why their take is better. And we've seen a lot of this versus, unless, of course, there's a rallying force, which happens from time to time. But, if you were to go and start a Canucks podcast, let's say GTD 2.0, how do you place yourself within the social media landscape that is Canucks Twitter?
Well, I think me personally, it would be very different than maybe someone who was really committed to being successful. But I think Jordan Bowman on Trust the Process, who through Game Time Decision has become one of my best friends. He always refers to it as the Canucks Civil War on Twitter, and that's not my jam. I don't know. So if I would want to be a show that played it down the middle as well as you could, as your guys' show does, there's the optimist points, and then there's the not so optimist points more frequently. And then, but I think to play the social media game as well with that becomes even more complicated, because you see Thomas Drance, for instance, on a daily getting rated by various trolls about his bad takes. And I wouldn't want to be a part of that personally, but like I said, I'm not as committed as a Thomas Drance.
Yeah, it's hard to know when to take people seriously, because I completely understand, Thomas Trant's trying to defend himself when he gets called fake or whatever he gets told. But yeah, at the same time, there's a lot of people that just want to fight. That's the kind of fuel of Canucks Twitter. So yeah, and I get drawn into the fights so easily, so I'm not gonna pretend I'm better than that. But yeah, I'm a lot nicer when I'm on the C4 Twitter. Actually, I'm not even sure that's true, but
I was going to say, you don't have to be.
I tried to be a bit nicer.
Well, I think a good example of, kind of how it's changed and what it is now is Wyatt, right? Wyatt is OG Canucks Twitter and continues to be, and hasn't changed anything about his Twitter presentation over the last 10 years. And people insist on giving him crap, despite the fact that he is... I don't mean to diminish Wyatt in any means, because once again, a good friend of mine, but he's Twitter comedy. He's Canucks comedy. And that's what he wants to be, and that's what he will be, and that's his presentation. But yet people are still like, that's a bad take, you're an idiot, you don't know what you're talking about, so on and so forth. Who put you in front of the Athletes, yada, yada, yada. And Wyatt's just Wyatt, and Wyatt's going to continue being Wyatt. And Wyatt is a person who made Canucks Twitter great 10 odd years ago. So,
well, Wyatt, I think Wyatt is a good indication of what sort of OG Twitter was about. Is you had sort of these various different sort of, I would say, personalities, and it's not that we all had our place. It's just that we enjoyed using Twitter as a means to connect and sort of broaden our reach, which I know there's the clout connotation to, but the idea is connecting with those that you would have otherwise not spoken to. Like, I used sort of Canucks Hockey Blog and then C4 sort of the extension as a means to just connect with people. I would have never, let's be honest, I would have never connected with Anna otherwise, I don't think.
Who knows?
For the podcast, right? You wouldn't have invited me to join GTD for that one episode. Again, I only joined for one, and maybe I have to take that personally, but
we didn't have a lot of repeat guests.
But the idea behind that, though, is that there's sort of in these personalities, and I don't sort of go out there and trumpet myself as anything more than just me. Like, I'll engage a conversation with nearly everyone, including Caleb, who I don't know if you've seen.
Have you guys met in real life yet?
Or you? Have Anna and I?
No, you and Caleb.
Or Caleb? No. There's
That's a shame.
thought that Caleb is simply like full on parody. There are those that think it's a full parody account. If it is, if the Caleb account is a parody account, get that person a job in acting or in maybe like WWE, because it's full on kayfabe there.
I think the first step of a good parody account is knowing it's a parody account. And if you don't know, that's probably a problem.
Yeah. But like in this conversation that I have that went on for an entire day, all I continued to try to do was be reasonable, keep things respectful, and any time that it sort of went to the mud to say, hey, no need to do that, let's bring it back up. And I will have that conversation with everyone. However, I am not like completely positive. I mean, I'll use sort of, former co-host Clay. Clay is, for the most part, very, very positive. He's gotten a little darker this year. I don't know what's causing Clay to be...
The pandemic broke Clay.
Yeah, maybe.
The North Division broke him.
Like, he's positive, but it's like that dark positive where, is it sort of is that a, backhanded compliment? But no, I mean, I try to view myself as relatively balanced, but willing to go and say something like, Jim Benning's not my guy, never has been, and I have yet to see him prove me wrong.
Right.
I'm okay
I
with
mean,
that.
I just go with a different style, and I think I don't think I'm unreasonable, but yeah, like kind of what Mike was saying about being committed to being successful. Like if I was really committed to being successful, I'd stop tweeting about cricket and just focus on one sport and to stop for tweeting about other stuff. But I'm interested in those things, and honestly, I have a lot of like friends that are sports writers in that field, so I have interesting connections there too. So it just makes it more interesting for me. But yeah, it's not exactly the recipe for a successful hockey like podcaster or personality, but I don't know, entertains me.
But thinking about the podcasts themselves and sort of how they've evolved and how there's so many. I mean, I'm not knocking it. If you want to start a Canucks podcast and you're a listener of ours, ask me and I will help you do so. Because I personally feel it's a phenomenal way to meet people and talk. But I don't use it for anything more than that. And I know there are some that do. Like we had some guests on our show a few weeks back from Permanent Marine Press, and they had done this article about like, hey, if you're curious about Canucks podcasts, here is a list. There are tons out there, but here are some that we listen to, and there are Canucks podcasts that are losing their gourd about not being listed as being available. And you have what I find interesting, the OGs. You've got like Trust the Process that's put claim on number 6. They're the 6th best
Proudly
Canucks podcast. Right? Proudly. I mean, I will always refer to C4 as the longest running because I know there's no one that can take that from us. And gosh darn it, if we look at lists, that puts us in the number 1 spot. But there's so much variety now. I mean, we think about sort of Canucks podcasts as they once were, and to what we have now, there's like the full on, like, I'm using this to springboard into a job in media. You have others who are like, I'm just here to, chat with mates. And then ones that have even evolved beyond just Canucks. They talk about sports in general. And we're also seeing the introduction of a variety of diverse voices. I mean, with the broadcast, Too Hot for Hockey, like these are 2 that I listen to. And again, not an exhaustive list on the diversity and within Canucks sort of the podcast space. But the point is, that's good. So why is it that there's this sort of connotation that having too many is bad? Do you have any idea about that?
I don't know. It's too many for me, and I don't mean that from there's too many out there, but I can't keep up. And to an extent, it gets a bit redundant after a while of hearing a lot of the similar takes. But I think back to when we started, and I'm like, wow, like I said, no one would listen to us now, but or me. But I'm happy to guest here, and happy to be the most reoccurring guest on Trust the Process, and that's my mantle to stand on, Chris. That's my proud moment. Yeah, but I don't think there's too many because, like you say, people just go do you. Go put your stuff out there. And if people catch on, it's awesome. But I would encourage people to not, like Ryan and I had zero expectation of anything when we started.
Right.
And I would encourage people to do that the same. Sorry, like podcasting makes very few people rich in this world, and it's probably not going to be you. And it very few people springboard careers off of podcasts, and it might not be you. And so just have realistic expectations of what this is going to be. But if you're passionate about it and you want to talk about it, please do. Because like you say, Chris, even when no one's listening, and I did a very briefly lived wrestling podcast with Bowman that no one listened to. But it's a really great excuse. And that's why I love doing 200 episodes of Game Time Decision with Ryan. It was a really good excuse to see my friend every week. It was a really good excuse to talk hockey every week. And even if no one listened, we probably still would have done it. So the listeners and the engagement and meeting great people like you two and Bowman and Wyatt and all these people that I've had lasting friendships with has been the real reward for me. Yeah. So if you have realistic expectations and you go out with the intentions of, I want to talk about something I'm passionate about, doesn't have to be hockey, it could be whatever, go do it, because it is a platform that is open and more or less free, not free, but you know what I mean? And and there's no excuse. So if you want to do it, but also you're not going to get famous. Sorry to break it to you.
I think that was a really lovely sentiment, kind of the lovely antidote to, Canucks Twitter and Canucks Twitter wars. I think, yeah, if you love it, just do it. I would still do this if only it was just my mom listening, which she does every week, even though she doesn't know the first thing about Canucks hockey.
Hi, Susan. I missed you.
There you go. Shout out to Mama Forsyth.
Yeah. Well, one of the things, and I'm just going to sort of springboard off what you said, is going in with sort of those expectations. But even when you start as podcasters, and really when it comes down to it, some of the greatest hockey podcasters, they never actually quit practicing their skills to improve their show and the content that they produce. And you shouldn't be any different. The ICBA trains thousands of workers every year on everything from Excel spreadsheets to excavating trenches, from personal leadership skills to construction estimating, from fall protection to effective management skills, and 500 other courses. They're online, on demand, there's webinars, and even COVID-safe in person. ICBA has an option for you and your busy lifestyle. Start climbing the corporate depth chart by sharpening your skills today. Check out icba.ca/courses. Let's take a look at the Vancouver Canucks over the last week, because boy, oh boy, this is a team that somehow has figured out how to generate points. I'm not entirely sure if you tuned into our last episode there, like it might have been the only one you've missed over the how many ever years that our show has been around. I know that for certainty.
I've memorized most of them.
Yeah, but we had predicted that the Vancouver Canucks were going to come away with some points. Anna and I were trying to think about this because neither one of us actually remembers what we had said with John. But Anna, you and John suggested 3 points.
Yeah,
that being
and you said
3 points
2.
out of Montreal. And I said 2, thinking that somehow they would get like a loser point, like 2 loser points is how I defined it. The Vancouver Canucks said, screw this, because they listened to the show. And they got 2 points out of the Senators, granted, shootout, but whatever. They got 2 points out of their first game against the Habs, granted, overtime, but who cares? And then they got a loser point against the Habs in a shootout. Arguably, one might suggest that's a successful road trip. What the heck is going on? This is a Vancouver Canucks team that, based on the words of Francesco Aquilini, are suffering through injuries.
Yeah, what is it about rich dudes just one-word sentences on Twitter?
Injuries. Sad.
Move feet, move puck. I mean, I'm kind of concerned that it's that simple. Or like Anna, I think you had said it. It's like, should we be worried that the Vancouver Canucks players needed to be told move feet, move puck? Like if it's that, if that's missing from their game, there's probably bigger problems at play.
Yeah, a little worrying, but sometimes you just have to remember the simple things. So I guess it worked, kind of, but we squeaked through against the weakest team in the division. And then, gave away another loser point to someone that we're supposedly competing for the playoff spot for, supposedly.
But how is this happening? Like, I genuinely can't answer this question. I mean, people will suggest, it's all Demko, and I don't disagree. I think it is. But despite that, the Vancouver Canucks defensively had only really one good game on this road trip. And they were able to get offensive production where weeks past wasn't even possible, especially with, someone like Petey not being in the lineup. So knowing that you are as dialed in with the Vancouver Canucks as you are, and what are the answers that I'm searching for, Mike?
Well, let me start by saying I hate this season.
Okay.
Fair enough. Okay, so let me explain my views on this season thus far. It's been a roller coaster of emotions. I've hated it. I know this team is bad, and I know they will continue to be bad. I hate how little of a plan I see in the future. But also, I'm the first person to say So you're telling me there's a chance. And as someone who's like that, this has been a terrible last couple weeks because I know they're bad. I want them to be bad. I want them to trade things away and asset management, etc., etc. And I don't want them to be good. I don't want anyone to get the false idea that they are good because they're not good. But still, I'm like, ooh, but this is interesting. What do they have, like a 16% chance of making the playoffs now? Ooh, that could be fun. And I still watch the games, but I hate watch the games. And I don't like this right now. So I'll start there.
I mean, yeah, great rant. I mean, you're bang right. They're not a good team.
How
but
dare
are
you?
they? Are they?
No.
No. So answer Chris's question.
Still no.
What is happening?
Thatcher Demko is a great goalie. Makes up for a lot of defensive shortcomings. Brock Bass is still scoring at a clip. And obviously, Jimmy Vesey just coming
everything
in
together.
And his 5-hour driving
for
to
nothing.
Inspire the team.
Hey, speaking, any word on what's happened to Jimmy Vesey's car? On that note, like
I think
I like to think it's
someone
still
went
there.
by at the weekend,
yeah,
and it is still there.
Took pictures of it. Like, leave it to Canucks Twitter to report on the status of Jimmy Vesey's car, because we have experience with cars being left.
I was going to say, was it Artem Chubarov, right? So yeah. Is
Artem
it still there?
Chubarov,
It might be. Let's ask
I
Ryan.
believe so. Yes. That's an important part of his job.
Can you? Yeah, you've probably got his number. Text Beach right now. Is Artem's car still in the lot? If so, can you send us a picture? C4 needs.
I'll do
know.
it. Don't test me.
I should also note that we're recording this show right now while the Vancouver Canucks are playing the Winnipeg
and
Jets,
losing.
being that it's a Monday night. Are they losing? Because I hadn't seen a score.
It's currently 1-0 Winnipeg.
Okay, well, anything's possible.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
I am.
I mean, there is a chance. There'll always be a chance. Like, I've said this before, but the stupid St. Louis Blues winning the cup while being in last place in January, it's just the worst thing to happen to hockey. Not only because we had to hear Gloria 500,000 times, but it just gives GMs too much leverage to try and save their jobs with a cup run. So,
well, the struggle, and this is again kind of where Mike shares my feelings, is that I would love for the Vancouver Canucks to win. If you had to make me choose, I will say win. And I know I've been on the show where I said in the past where I want them to lose. I kind of conflicted. Like, if they're going to lose, just do it and make the changes that are necessary so they can get back to being a good competitive team that truly does compete within the division or within the league, depending on obviously the type of season. But when I look at the Vancouver Canucks right now, I mean, prior to tonight's game, they're a 500 team, which only 2 weeks ago was a team that was just barely scratching 400 hockey. Like, they were out of it, and then suddenly they decided, oh, actually, no, we don't want to be out of it anymore. And that's where I started to get more concerned. You have Elliot Friedman reporting this past weekend that the Vancouver Canucks have maybe pumped the brakes and being sellers. Okay, I got no problem if they just get stuck in neutral and do nothing. I might not be too happy if they hit pass up on deals because they want to remain competitive. But when I hear that, this is a team, at least its management core, who's also shown a desire to improve the team through rentals and deals to get themselves just over the bar or compete to get as close to the bar as possible. And that doesn't make the team better next year.
I think, and maybe we're going to touch on it a bit later, but I think the moves that were made this week were indicative of a team that's ready to sell. So I think that's good. I think they're preparing to lose forwards, or they're trying to put these guys that they picked up on waivers up on a pedestal a little bit and see if they can move them. But I think this is indicative of a team that's ready to make some moves.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah, I think we'll go into it. No, that is a positive sign. I guess the problem will be is if the GM isn't even the problem.
Yeah. The thing, though, that when we look at the standings and just sort of getting back onto sort of this week, it was the Vancouver Canucks are 500 hockey. They're still outside looking in. Their 500 record has gotten them technically ahead of the Calgary Flames. Although, in fairness, the Calgary Flames still have, I believe, a game in hand pending tonight's result. Flames losing. That said, if the Vancouver Canucks lose, then it's moot. But the team they're chasing in the Montreal Canadiens is currently sitting with 2 more points, but 4 games in hand. Actually, did Calgary win tonight? I don't know. Calgary, Montreal. No, they didn't. I don't know what's going on anymore. Montreal didn't play. Sorry. Montreal Edmonton didn't play. Too much crazy stuff going on. But I look at the standings, and I don't see how the Vancouver Canucks can sustain the run in sufficient manner to find them the ability to get past the Canadiens or the Jets, unless one of those teams completely has the, carpet ripped out from underneath their feet. And yet, the team playoff group of people in Canuck Social would immediately point out that the Vancouver Canucks in their last 10 have arguably the best record in the North. Right, 1 less loss than the Oilers because they got the loser point. But in the last 10, Vancouver Canucks are doing exactly what they need to do, and it's difficult to argue with that.
It's difficult to argue with it. It's easy to hate it. Because I want no part of this.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is if you keep giving away, if you keep winning, but you're giving away points to the people above you, it's kind of like having a bucket in a boat with a hole in it. You can keep, throwing out the water, but you're going to keep sinking eventually. Yeah. Was that a bit bleak? I'm sorry, but...
Well, I mean, on that note, known Canucks hater Thomas Drance.
That jerk.
He actually asked a question after the game against the Canadiens to Travis Green along the lines of, do you feel you kind of sort of sat in the back foot by essentially splitting the 2-game series to the Habs? Yes, the road trip might have been successful. You're getting points, but the team you're chasing is the one that you're giving the points back. You split. Is that, not a good thing? And Travis was having none of it. He said, no, of course, this is a successful road trip. It is, but that's not the question that Drance was asking. It's that the team that you're chasing, you need to steal points from the Canadiens, especially when they got games in hands. Win all you want against the Sens. Heck, beat the Flames right now. That still doesn't get you the points you need to get in a division when every game that you play is essentially a 4-point game. Or if you give them bonus point, 5-point game. I don't know.
Well, like Anna said, we're being bleak right now.
This is what the podcast is. You described us earlier as balanced, and I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, we are a bit bleak. It's funny, though. As soon as there's just that glimmer of hope, everyone jumps on board. I got this old tweet of mine from a month ago that wasn't even a tweet. It was a reply to Sarah Sivian saying that if the North was bad, as bad as she was saying, that the Canucks would win more games. Being flippant about how bad the Canucks were, and everyone's saying, well, they've won 4 in a row now. Do you want to, eat humble pie? But, I mean, I think it just shows. It's a weak division, and Canucks still have to win, 750, play 750 hockey to get out of it.
You can be a bad team and win games. It happens all the time. It just so happens that they're doing it in a row. And it's more indicative that Thatcher Demko is godlike levels right now. And as you mentioned, Brock Besser, it's okay, good forward, good goalie. Those are good foundations. Will they be able to afford to keep all these players in the next 2 years? Who knows? But that doesn't make them a good team. That doesn't mean they're certainly not defensively sound. They're allowing, I don't know what the average is, but 35 plus shots a game. That's not a good team. Sorry.
Just on that note, if we just look at goals for and against, the Vancouver Canucks compared to the Montreal Canadiens right now have a 26 goal swing. So the Canadiens are currently sitting at plus 13 and the Canucks were at minus 12 going into tonight. So, when we obviously have to consider the Vancouver Canucks have played more games, so that might adjust, but 26 goal difference does not disappear over 5 games.
Right.
That's not going to happen. talking a little bit about the games of themselves, last week, John Jang, who'd joined us, he had suggested there was the possibility that Holtby starts against the Sens. Couple reasons. One, Holtby gets sort of a softer opponent to start against, and two, seeing that the Canadians are the must-win games, you start your best goaltender, even though it might be back-to-back. And plus, the thought being is the Canucks then come home, and then you maybe rest Demko tonight. That's not the case. Demko started tonight. Holtby started on Saturday. Now, what I didn't know when we were recording the show was, of the goaltenders currently playing in the league, Holtby has the best winning percentage of away team goaltenders in Montreal, which I wonder if that factored into Travis Green's mind when he came to choose who was starting what. But the point is, Demko got Senators, Habs first game, Holtby got second. Do you change that? Do you ride Demko hard if you're a team that's wanting to win, or do you still have to rest him thinking that, well, there's a future
No,
here?
they played it exactly the way they should have played it. It's Braden Holtby is getting paid $4 odd million, whatever it is, and he's a Stanley Cup winning goaltender. He needs to be able to perform in this situation. He should be able to back up Thatcher Demko in a back-to-back whenever he's asked to. And this is the exact right situation that he should have done so. Maybe he's not the best. Maybe Thatcher Demko is playing in a godlike fashion, but this is exactly what they're playing Braden Holtby way too much money to do. So he should be able to perform. So I think they played it the way they should have, and it turned out okay. Not ideal, but, who's to say it would have ended up any better with Thatcher Demko in net on Saturday?
Now, despite Thatcher Demko being the sort of differentiator, do you feel that if you were Travis Green, would you be managing his load a little bit better, thinking that we need to get Holtby in a few more games to rest Demko for this playoff run we seem to have our sights still set on? Or
no. Keep going exactly how you're going. Back-to-backs, give Holtby the net. Thatcher seems run down, give Holtby the net. But other than that, Thatcher Demko is your obvious number one goaltender. And this, I think, is playing out exactly how they wanted it to play out when they signed Braden Holtby. Maybe it's a little bit premature that Demko is performing the way he is now, but they brought in Braden Holtby to be a veteran backup and to deliver if Demko can't, and B, to be someone they can expose to Seattle. So he's doing his job so far. Hopefully now Seattle does their part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. I was going to say that's the only problem here is that maybe Holtby hasn't won as many games as the Canucks would have liked to be a good advert for his services for Seattle. But yeah, I will be the first to say that I doubted Thatcher Demko, and I definitely doubted his ability to turn it around this quickly. I was not, a believer after 2 games against Vegas where this team suddenly remembered to play defense in front of him. So I'm impressed. But yeah, he's the obvious number one, but also don't break him. So, I trust Ian Clark. I don't trust players whatsoever to, say that they're feeling
players,
run down.
They always tell the truth. Yeah, coach, I need to sit a game. I'm not feeling good.
Especially goaltenders.
Yeah, exactly.
They always do that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and especially in hockey. Yeah, they have no problems with, macho BS whatsoever.
No, there's nothing in the code about that, so they're perfectly good sitting out. One final note. How much do the Vancouver Canucks miss Pettersson right now?
Apparently not at all. They've had their best winning record without him.
Games in regulation with PD.
Oh, okay. No loser points being handed out if Pettersson's around.
Yeah. There's been, mostly the troll takes, but there are some out there that suggest, well, the Vancouver Canucks are proving how good of a team they are without PD in the lineup. Imagine how awesome they will be with him in the lineup. And then from there, the extension of even further crazy takes. Would you pick up the phone if someone called about PD? Because, hey, look at where they are at right now without him. it's
That's crazy talk, Chris.
like tinfoil hat season here. Let me tell you how crazy
Well, it does get
is.
pretty tempting at
I'm
one
not
point,
suggesting they
right?
get rid of
Because
Petey.
like he's offer sheet eligible this year. A decent offer sheet would net us 4 first-round picks over the next 4 years. Is that, these things get kind of tempting at some point.
I love how just like your room has darkened around you, so you look extra crazy when you say stuff like that.
Trade Pettersson. Let the evil flow through you.
It's solid logic, but I don't think we're there. I think we are a little bit above, like, the bottom of the rebuilds. We're so much further behind than we should be, but you can't, like, there's nothing, like, the whole heart goes out of this team if you trade Pedson.
And we're not Buffalo here, right? Like, Buffalo should be trading their stars.
Well, I want to say there was someone out east that suggested, we talked about in a show a couple weeks ago. Globe KPD suggested the Vancouver Canucks make a play for Eichel, but offering up PD or Hughes.
Yeah.
And
6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
There are those that suggest it. Obviously, not in the Vancouver market, and there are those in the Vancouver market that suggest it. But obviously, wearing far more tinfoil than I am on my head.
Hockey considerations aside, at some stage you've got to get fans back in an arena, and yes, people want to come back, but there'll be a good section of people that are pretty nervous about coming back. I know I am, and it'll have to be a slow introduction at any rate. So, yeah, you definitely need your stars to tempt people.
Yeah, but I think that might be an advantage for this traded deadline, because they don't need to sell tickets for the last few months of this season. So you don't need to bring fans in. So who cares if you're losing a bit more? Who cares if you're, all those fans who are coming for Brandon Sutter, they can, he was a big draw. I know all those, who else is on the block? Tanner Pearson fans. They can come back later.
Although he's hurt.
Yeah, I know. And now Sutter's is out of the lineup tonight. If they're both injured for the trade deadline.
That would be the curse, if you will.
That would. Yeah, the Canucks fan curse for sure.
Speaking of curse, this show is sometimes, and that's why we're going to take ourselves a quick break. You're listening to C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast on CanucksHockeyBlog.com and the Full Press Coverage Network.
Take hitting out of the game. You can't hit anymore, so don't do it.
The unsportsmanlike conduct, I want to get an explanation on that.
No kidding.
Because how do you get suspended for unsportsmanlike conduct?
Plus interference. There's no interference there. He had the puck.
Now, Madison never ever did that before. Now, why did he do it? Because he was mad.
Well, your early favorite for the Calder Trophy, that's for sure. Elias Pettersson, you might even say your early favorite for the Hart Trophy.
Just to get back to your question, Elias is going to play plenty. He didn't play. He's going to get a lot of power play time. And, yeah, I'm concerned about our offense. We lost 200-point players, and we've got to find a way to score.
We've kind of started getting into this chatter already. What are the Canucks going to be doing come trade deadline? We've seen Kyle Dubas try to build the Vancouver Canucks on behalf of Jim Benning, and I'm being facetious. Obviously, Kyle cannot force the Vancouver Canucks to take his waiver wire options, but that seems to be what the Vancouver Canucks are doing, having picked up Travis Boyd today and Jimmy Vesey last week. Vesey's in the lineup. Boyd, however, I think has to do his 1-week quarantine before he can join the Canucks. My take on these types of pickups, all the better if you can manage it under the cap. Waiver wire acquisitions are never really bad things if you can, one, use them as leverage, or two, as depth if you're using other things as leverage. And Mike, you mentioned that. You think this is an indication of a team that's still looking to sell, being that they're bringing in these parts. So can you sort of dive into that a little bit deeper for me?
Yeah, to me, it screams that they're stocking up the cupboards so that they have roster level replacement players to replace the Sutters and the Pearsons of the world. And of course, injuries. But I think, yeah, or the other option is once again, do you push these players up? Do you give them a place to perform, and then do you trade them off? Like the last Maple Leaf scrap that we got was Levo, and that panned out pretty well, and they could have made something out of that. They didn't, but he performed pretty well while he was a Canuck, and got himself a pretty good contract out of him being a Canuck. So these things can work out positively, but ultimately I think it is about, let's give us enough flexible room, enough roster level forwards so that we can trade off everything we can trade off. And I think in regards to what they need to do is they need to get something out of everything. And I honestly don't care. I honestly don't care if it's nothing. Am I still working? Yeah. Okay, sorry. My little microphone dial isn't working anymore. Oh, there it goes. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, so as long as they get a little piece out of everything, I think everyone gets to keep their jobs for the time being, as sad as that might be.
I mean, that's the thing, right? Yeah, I think we got Josh Levo in exchange for a Utica player, so it was basically free.
No, it was a waiver wire pickup, wasn't it?
No, Michael Carson from...
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, you're right. He cleared waivers right before, and then they
exactly.
traded him for some garbage.
Yeah,
gotcha.
Peanuts. No offense to Michael Carson, but yeah, it was never going to play for the Canucks. But anyway, the point is, this is exactly how you should be. Well, it's not like you should be building your roster on waiver wire pickups, but these are the kind of players.
I believe what Anna's saying is that Jim Benning's a perfect general manager and is doing everything correctly.
After
That's what
7 years, he was just like, oh, these are the guys that should be in my bottom, my fourth line. I mean, I saw a stat, I believe, from Jeff Ayette today, and it was just the wins above replacement for these players is better than our fourth line, and just so much cheaper. If they work out, great. If they don't, something great. And if they don't, who cares? Yeah. I guess my only worry would be that it, some smart moves at the deadline saves a GM's job.
Well, we were actually chatting about these moves in C4 Discord, and one of the things that seemed to be a recurring theme is that collectively, I think most of our listeners agree these are the players, these are the Jags the team has always sort of needed. This is the type of sort of roster construction we'd like to see happen. These are the moves we'd like to see Jim make to, build his roster further and create the flexibility that one might need to, let's say in this case, sell, because I think the three of us agree selling is the prerogative this season. But did it take him 7 years to learn this? And if so, does that mean, now that he's showing signs of actually learning how to do what other GMs have been doing, opportunity for him to keep his job? Like, what do you feel? Is this enough, or is this just him making moves to help the next GM take over?
I think it will be enough, honestly. Like, I know that no one wants to hear that, and everyone assumes that he's going to be fired at the end of the year, but I think after this year, the Aquilinis are hesitant to spend it more money than they need to. And I think they might bring in someone additional to be a president of hockey ops, or someone to be kind of a middleman to help Jim make better decisions. But I think this guy's around for the next little bit. And I might be in the minority saying that, but I think it's in the best financial interest of this team to keep Jim Benning. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a big factor that people might be underestimating. So yes, I think that making the right moves at the deadline, the only one I'm not behind is Edler, and maybe that's just because I'm a fan. But I think hanging on to Edler, I think he'll probably re-sign for 1.5, 2 million or something, and kind of stick around to end his career as a Canuck. So if that's the case, then hang on to him. But everyone else can go. And I think, like I said, I don't care if you get a fifth for Sutter. That's better than nothing.
Yeah, I completely agree that, sell the whole farm pretty much. I mean, you raise a good point about just ownership and penny pinching. I mean, we've got a coach that's sitting just a lame duck right now, and the GM, whether he's here or not, he loves the coach. We've got a goaltending coach that the coach and the GM love. Doesn't have a new contract. Hearing, rumors about, Canucks trying to get a extra goaltender so that their goaltending number one goaltending prospect isn't sitting in the taxi squad, but that might require a bit of cash money, and ownership don't want to do that. So, yeah, if it saves them money, they might just do it.
Better than paying two people.
I still can't. Yeah, I was going to say, I still can't get over you suggesting that Jim comes back next year. I'm not suggesting your logic is flawed. It's actually quite sound.
I'm not suggesting it. It's not my idea.
Yeah,
just a prediction.
Well, sort of curious, being fans as long as we have been, if there's fans in the seat, let's say the pandemic didn't happen, does Jim still have a job right now after the run that the Vancouver Canucks had?
No. Well, no, he would have been, but there's a lot of factors to that. There's, and to my point earlier, there's the income factor. They're making a lot. If the pandemic doesn't happen, their stupid steakhouses are still open. They're still selling real estate. They're still making money at the gate. So, no, Jim doesn't have a job because there would be people throwing jerseys on the ice at about the 10 game mark here. So, no.
Also, if the pandemic doesn't happen, maybe Canucks might not have made the playoffs last year. So,
that's a good point too.
I mean, yeah, did he even have the job to start the season? Conceivably. I think what's weird for me, and I understand that the wallet is a little light when it comes to ownership, but the fact that you have your head coach, essentially your coaching staff, without an extension, you have a goaltending coach without an extension, you've got scouting staff either in limbo from a contract perspective or even a directional perspective, like what does the offseason, what's next year going to look like, it doesn't lead me to believe that there's confidence in the current guy at top, who, if you were to think from a strategic sense, is currently operating in his words day to day. In fact, I think the only way he could get more granular is if he simply operated everything under the concept of a game time decision.
I know those words.
So I as much as
you're playing day by day, isn't that what he said?
Yeah. I just take things, day by day, game by game. Like, I'm sorry, GMs can't operate day to day. You pay your coach good money to do that. And if you're not going to pay your coach good money to do that, then you should be behind the bench. Oh my God, could you imagine Jim Benning as like the modern day era of the Canucks Pat Quinn?
Oh God. Hey, get out there, guys. Work real hard, okay? Yeah.
I was going to say, like, Dominic Ducharme barely wears his mask during games. I don't think Jim Benning would at all. He strikes me as that sort of coach. Like, doesn't even
first line center Jay Beagle.
I need to correct you here, Anna. Dominic Ducharme totally wears his mask on the bench. It keeps his chin warm.
Yeah, exactly.
Jim Benning behind the bench. Oh my goodness. Like that would, if that had happened, or if that happens, I genuinely wonder how Canucks Twitter would react. Like even those who are
it would implode upon itself.
Yeah, I was going to say that exact thing.
Like, oh my goodness, that'd be crazy. But I mean, if you're the Canucks, you had mentioned you're probably going to sell. You're going to sort of ramp up for next season. But do you think Jim's timeline is accurate? Is this a team that's 2 years away from being competitive?
That's really circumstantial. Like, they could make really bad contract decisions in the meantime. And I posed the question on Twitter in my furor of Canucks anger a month ago. Would you rather be a Canucks fan or an Ottawa Senators fan right now? And my thought process behind that was, I feel like the Ottawa Senators have a plan for the future, and I feel like the Canucks don't. And I see nothing that gives me confidence that they'd be able to do this in 2 years. But do they have the skill on paper right now to do so? Yeah. That's when these players are going to, the top guys, Hughes, Pettersson, etc., aren't getting any worse. So as they improve, this team is going to get better. That being said, you can make some real cruddy decisions around them, and it could end up blowing up in your face.
A plan. What's a plan?
I mean, I'd still rather be a Canucks fan because then I wouldn't have to live in Ottawa, but...
You don't have to That's not how fandom works.
True. That's true. Obviously, I know that, but... I just mean, like, growing up. I would rather have grown up a Canucks fan, but... Yeah, they have way more of a sense of direction. Like,
it seems that way.
As you say. I mean... as terrifying as the thought of Jim keeping his job is, it's also scary getting a new GM and starting over with this roster. Not as scary, like, I still think they should do it, but...
I mean, I look at Canucks history. So the probably closest comparison is when Brian Burke took over from acting GM, caretaker, angry person Mike Keenan. And when Brian came in, he had a roster that was stuck in mediocrity. And he immediately came in, blew things out of the water in getting the second and third overall picks. Obviously turns into Daniel and Henrik Sedin, but he starts to go in and bring in pieces that empowered the West Coast Express to exist. The Vancouver Canucks played some exciting hockey under Mark Crawford. It also showed the Sedins and some of the other younger players what it took to compete and how to play the game well. And that's where I think you look at the Vancouver Canucks. They've got this young core that need sort of that experience. I don't feel Jim is the guy that's helming the ship that's going to do that. Like Jim making Brian Burke moves.
As much as I appreciate your allusion to 1998, it was also, I'm bad at math, 13 years, 12 years before they were a cup contending team after that point.
Well, okay.
So
true.
they settled in mediocrity for the entire aughts. They were good. They were exciting. They were good players.
I think if we consider like the West Coast Express era, there were some exciting times, but
so let me ask you this: do you want Elias Pettersson, Quinn Hughes, etc., to squander in mediocrity like Marcus Naslund?
No, and
Todd Bertuzzi did.
I don't want that. I want this young core to be like the Sedins era, and the difficulty though is sad as it might say, I don't get the indication that the team that we see today is going to be competing for a cup in 2 years. That's not a knock against this young roster. It's the supplementary pieces around this young core and this young roster. And the fact that the current general manager has a history of overpaying, signing bad deals. That's not to suggest the replacement comes in and drastically changes things. Like Brian Burke was not perfect. Like the number of people who go and argue that Mike Gillis left the cupboards bare, one could argue that Brian Burke kind of did the same thing, but his job was a whole lot different. And then who was it that restocked the cupboards? It was Dave Nonis until Dave Nonis was shown the door. And then when Mike Gillis came in, he was told to go and win. So he did everything he could in his possible ability to get the Canucks there. And they were a few goals away from it.
Don't remind me.
So I just feel like Jim Benning, he's doing his job. He's restocked the cupboards. There's a young core to build around. Let's bring in someone else who actually knows how to capitalize on it. So I guess to answer your question, having taken all this time talking about it, I do not want for the West Coast Express era of mediocrity simply to give me exciting hockey. I want a cup. Heck, I think someone asked it. I think it was a friend of the show, Sean, who'd said, would you accept a deep cup run with Jim Benning or a couple more years of needing to build with someone else? And I answered to say I would prefer a cup under Jim Benning, and he could be the GM until forever. The Canucks get a cup, and I'm happy.
All sins are forgiven.
Yeah, I mean, I did say I'd rather have him gone than a deep cup run. Like, deep cup run does nothing unless there's a cup at the end of it. And I rather selfishly said that I don't want a COVID cup. Not because I don't think they count. They do count. I just want to go out and party with everyone on Granville,
Well, technically speaking, whether it's a COVID cup or not, if the Vancouver Canucks won it, there will be a party out on Granville.
Yeah, I meant a safe party. I don't want to do things Tampa Bay style.
What are you talking about? It was perfectly fine down there in Florida. It's all
with everyone drinking out of the cup. Grim.
It's a very sanitary experience. That cup essentially has been around and seen so many things that nothing survives the bowl.
Little did we know that cup was actually filled with AstraZeneca.
Whoa!
So they were just drinking it. Oh, my goodness, that's the test.
See, I was gonna say that I think that the Stanley Cup could probably start another pandemic with all the germs in it.
Well, considering some of the stories, it's pretty scary. You might be onto something here, Anna. Looking at the clock here, we've had ourselves a pretty solid show. And, first of all, Mike, thanks for joining us. I apologize it's taken, this long to get you on. Even though you only got me on, Game Time Decision once, you got me on Game Time Decision.
He's not gonna.
He keeps coming back. Anna was also on only once, and I don't hear her mentioning it all the time.
And really, I was on with someone else, so I split my.
Yeah, she was on half the time. So was Clay, though. So was Chris.
Yeah, I had Claire. It's like we get there. It's like, oh, what do you guys want to drink? And I'm like, yeah, whatever. And Clay's like, do you have like a Diet Pepsi or a Diet Coke? Because Clay doesn't drink, and so
I know. Well, everyone finds it so hilarious that the first time Clay and I met, we went to a pub. But yeah, that was what happened. I took him to a London pub. I think he enjoyed the experience. The atmosphere.
Yeah, he's good people. It's just like everyone there is ordering a pint, and Clay, to his credit, he doesn't drink. He probably ordered like a Diet Pepsi or Diet Coke or something along those lines, right?
But bought me a beer. So he is good.
What a gentleman.
Clay is good people.
I'd just like to let you guys know that Ryan says that he assumes that Artem Chubarov's car is not in the parking lot anymore, but he will ask. He's going to run it up the ladder.
See, This is the type of content you only get on C4. No other Canucks podcast gets you that.
And I asked, don't you park next to him? And he said, no, I don't park with the players and execs. I have to park with the regular staff.
Oh. He doesn't like being a pleb.
So he's not as Hollywood as Anna thinks he is.
Man, wouldn't it be something? I mean, let's be honest, it's gone. But imagine if it wasn't, like that it was just there. It would be Canucks lore forever.
People put flowers around it on a yearly basis. It's a whole thing.
Someone would have to dust it, because obviously that car sits there is just going to get just caked in.
Thomas Drance sits there on his hands and knees and cries every now and then.
Are you telling me that Thomas Drance has something to do with Artem Chubarov?
No, I'm not saying anything.
But thanks for joining us and hanging out. We'll have to get you back on. Just so you know, you are now a friend of the show.
Oh,
it's the exclusive membership group.
That gives me the warm and fuzzies.
Join us. I know it totally does. The membership card will be mailed out sometime.
Excellent.
When we get them, if ever. We should have C4 podcast friend of the show membership cards.
Yeah, I don't know. Next, when we're actually allowed in bars, I will write one for you on the back of a beer mat.
Oh, I'll take it.
There we go.
Are you calling a coaster a beer mat?
Well, a beer mat is like a fancy coaster.
We have fancy coasters?
Okay, I don't really know what I'm talking about. It's been so long.
I have a collection of beer towels that I've stolen from various pubs in England.
Oh my god, they must have smelled so bad.
I washed them eventually. Not in my luggage. They didn't smell great coming home, but...
Yeah, I'm sure. And I'm
John
actually
was probably sitting down as you walked through customs or whatever.
Shocked you didn't get in trouble for bringing a new organism into the country.
I started COVID-19.
Oh man!
My God!
Our podcast is just going to get totally flagged now for misinformation. No wonder we haven't had you on our show.
We'll just have warnings to be like, no, Mike Paris did not start COVID-19
from a beer mat that I stole from London.
No, the Stanley Cup does not have a virus inside it.
The algorithm, my goodness. If the algorithm actually reviews the audio, guaranteed our episode's gonna have a flag next to it on our Facebook.
And we were worried
or
about you swearing, Mike.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm just making claims like that.
Well, if anyone wants to, keep track of these claims and many of the other wild takes that you share, where can all of our listeners find you these days?
Just on Twitter, at that Mike Paris. My entire resume includes former podcast hosts, so that's the only place I am.
That's unfortunate. I was hoping you were going to come oh yeah, I'm launching my new podcast.
Breaking news.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I mean, you already shared breaking news that,
Artem Chubarov's car might still be there.
Yeah.
Awesome. But no, it's been a lot of fun. But we do this at the end of all of our shows. Any final words of wisdom to all of our listeners?
Wow. I wasn't prepared for this. No, but I'll go back to what I said earlier. If you're going to start a podcast, you aren't getting famous.
Anna.
Well, Mike's kept it super real after his ludicrous takes. But yeah, thanks for coming on. It's kind of weird that I have to, start a podcast and to see my friends these days, but that's the COVID ways.
Here we are.
Yeah. But yeah, it's been great to reminisce on all the times, the OG Canucks podcasting days when I was like sitting on a London bus on my way to work listening to Game Time Decision or C4, and look at me now.
You're a host of C4. I'm thankful GTD, wound down because things might not have gone the direction they did if they were still around. People would have been fighting over you.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Wow, Mike, take me down.
My words of wisdom is much like Mike. If you want to start a podcast, please do so. I can't speak for the veracity of becoming famous or not, but if you do want to start one and you need help, please reach out to me. Now, how can you reach out to me? Got this ready for you. Join C4 Discord. Discord.io/C4 podcast. When you join into the conversation, you can ask me directly there, but you can also have a conversation with some of the best Canucks podcast listeners out there. Gate 16 is the place to do it. Game day channels are also open. Some of the hottest takes happen in there. Lots of other chatter too. Lately, there's been a lot of conversation about food or Call of Duty Warzone. So if either of those are your fancy, you can find that in C4 Discord. You can also send us a text message. How many podcasts out there have a phone number? We've got one. It's 604-200-6201, 604-200-6201. See the light, just like Mike did. He turned his light on. We've gone an entire show where it got darker, but now he has given us the light. And make sure you sign up to the C4 newsletter. It's bit.ly/the C4 newsletter. The reason why you want to do that is you get to stay on top of what's happening, including the fact that we shared that Mike was joining us in that newsletter. So you learn stuff like that early by being, subscribed. So thank you, Mike, again for joining us. Oh, Anna, you have something to say?
I was just going to say, to be fair to Mike, I think they just got electricity out in the suburbs of Vancouver. Is that right?
Yeah, here in Port Coquitlam, we churn our own butter. So
I live in the suburbs too, and I'm pretty sure I have had power the entire show, Anna.
Yeah, but is Baby Force out there churning a handle?
Cranking a generator.
Hey, kids are expensive. You gotta have them earn their keep somewhere or other. If you're wanting to listen to the show, c4podcast.com, canuckshockeyblog.com, or in every single podcatcher out there. And by the way, it's been a long, long time since we had a podcast review. Remember, if you leave us a review, good, bad, or otherwise, we will read it verbatim on the show. Just be prepared that if you do give us a bad review, we may poke fun at it because we have some modicum of pride. Just some. Not a lot. But you're listening to the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast on canuckshockeyblog.com and the Full Press Coverage Network. By the way, we're out.